Welcome. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to my Friday tarot chat. And today I have something special to share with you, and that is a bit of a walkthrough of tarot through time, shall we say. And one of the things I will mention a few times as I'm sharing decks with you today is that honestly, in just a short period of time, an hour or so, I really can't do this topic justice, but this is simply an offering today in honor of World Tarot Day, which was yesterday. World Tarot Day was founded not that long ago, and the tradition has been carried on through the Tarosophy organization, Katz and Goodwin. And I just think it's a really lovely offering, so I wanted to support their endeavors. And I know they've had a lot of wonderful teachers working under their name. So I'm just going to share with you a few historical and not so historic decks, but ones that have made, I feel like, an impact on the world of tarot. And I will share with you a little bit from some of the guidebooks and so forth. I also want to say that I have not studied a lot of these decks, and a lot of these decks I'm sharing with you today are ones that are on the list, so to speak. And any of the dates that I will be posting in the description box below later, or that I mentioned today, these are very rough dates. And I'm going to share with you in a chronological order. And as I was just thinking now, I probably should have pulled out that long, narrow deck that I have that is the precursor to playing cards, but I didn't do that. I've got the Sola Busca Tarot in hand, and the edition that I have is a recent acquisition of mine. This is from Lo Scarabeo, and unfortunately this is a glossy deck. It would be so wonderful if they had published it in a matte version. And for those of you that haven't worked with or haven't seen this deck, a lot of these images will look very familiar. Now, I'm going to read to you about the origin. Yes, exactly, Sharon. Thank you. It would have been really cool to start with the Malmuk deck, and I probably will share that deck with you when I begin my Marseille series, or my Marseille year, because I think that's an important deck to bring into this story. Yeah, thank you, Sharon. So, and welcome to everybody who's been here, and thank you for those of you who have patiently been waiting for me to show up. Dee and Donna, hello. Janine, Saskia, Donna, namaste to all of you. Donna, and Hannah, hello. So one of the things I wanted to share about this deck, and if you haven't seen this version of the deck, I will just let you know how large it is. They are big cards, so you really do, that's how big they are. You do get a feel for like a museum quality size deck. This is kind of interesting. So the Sola Busca Tarot, previously belonging to the Marchesa Busca, born Duchess of Serbelloni. Oh, this is one of these days. Okay, hopefully we have peace and quiet. I'm on late today because there's been a lot of activity in the neighborhood and lots of interruptions. Anyway, this deck was acquired by the Ministry of Cultural Resources and Activities in 2009 in Milan. And the history and the information that Lo Scarabeo is including in this book includes the research of lots and lots of efforts over the years to look to the origin of this deck. And they have, through a process, historical processes, taken this deck back to 1070 in our years. And I am very, I think it would be amazing to do some work with the Sola Busco and Busca, because, and I have looked at individual cards and studied individual cards, the ones that are closely related to and the ones that partially inspired some of the images in the Ryder Smith Tarot. For example, Ten of Wands, Ten of Swords, cards like that. And, you know, when I look at these cards, another thing that it makes me realize is that it's definitely possible to have oversized cards. And I'm thinking of the number of decks that have come out more recently that would have benefited from being published on as larger cards, so we could have a closer look up at the artwork, the pips. So there is the Ace of Cups. I'm hoping I can share with you some of the notes from the Fleur Noire deck. And on this deck, we do see numbers, and it's really interesting because Jean-Claude Fleur Noire, and one of the books I've been reading this morning, getting ready to talk with you, is the translation of, so the translation of his book is by David Vine. And this one is called Seeing the World, Tarot Signposts on the Path to Perception. One of the things that I didn't realize in the tarot was that none of the cards were numbered to a certain point. And this is some information that I will definitely bring forward when I do my Marseille series, because I think that in itself gives a different sort of, and we're talking of course about the major arcana, gives a different energy to working with the cards. And I think that, you know, how contemporarily we have brought in numerological layers, numerological associations, and that may, without having numbers on the cards, that kind of changes everything. So I really do love the colors in this deck. And I, of course, if I'm going to do a study of this deck, would go back and probably find more of a something that didn't look so polished and finished, and then we could do a comparison of some of the cards and the colorations here. Also, I think getting a couple of different variations of this deck would be really, I don't know if there is an Il Meneghello variation of this deck or not. So yeah. And then of course it's a very long, this of course inspired Pamela Coleman Smith or Arthur Waite in the Ryder Smith deck. But then this energy of course carries through in the whole suit. And so this is what I was talking about, right? So in this deck we have, this is the Ten of Swords, but this is the image that inspired the Ten of Wands, right? In the Ryder Smith deck. So yeah. So this deck is one that I really feel deserves a little bit of time and effort, and I think it would make me such a better reader if I could find the space for a historical study such as this. Yes. Now, many of you, I mentioned Jean-Claude Fleur Noire. who is no longer with us. And the introduction to this particular book, I have a couple of his decks. And David Vine, who reached out to Jean-Claude Flournoy to get some information for another tarot book he was translating. It was sort of by accident that these two souls met. And Jean-Claude mentioned that, or Monsieur Flournoy mentioned that he was looking to have this book translated, and that hadn't happened yet. And so these two got together, and I want to say it is such a gift to the world that this got translated. Now, Flournoy is a painter. Flournoy is a painter. This is a small deck. And so this is the restoration, woodcut restoration by Flournoy, and I'll just show you the end or the front of the box. So circa 1650. So this is the Jean Noblet circa 1650. Yeah. These cards are square and small, and I will definitely be including these cards when we get to our Marseille year. And as I was reading through Seeing the World, there's just so many wonderful things in this book that I was reminded of. And he does, at the beginning of the book, discuss the intersection of the Kabbalah and Tarot, and so the 22 Hebrew letters and the 22 major arcana. And I wanted to read to you, if I can find it quickly, the final sentence from this paragraph, because I think it's very interesting. These systems, the Tarot and Kabbalah, are not so very different from one another. And this book, by the way, was published, I'll just let you know, I don't know when it was published in French, 2018, and I'm guessing that's the English version of the book was published in 2018. These two systems have in common that they open the way to total freedom for the incarnate being, and yet they correspond to audiences, to cultures, to ways of perceiving the world around us, and to concepts of the nature of being that are divergent at a visceral level, east and west. To try to merge or make them interdependent would end up reducing the cultural identities of entire peoples, resulting in a loss of roots. Instead, we will content ourselves with allowing them simply to enrich each other. Tarot and Kabbalah are two different vehicles. Let us avoid equating them. And so I thought that was really, really well put. And this book is just a wealth of information. And part of the reason I want to come back to this book and to spend a year lost in the Marseille is because I need to refresh my memory about where some of the correspondences come from. And we were working with the Devil card in Tarot Foundations this week. And one of the things that's it's just mind-blowing. The energy of the devil and the idea of, in the Druidcraft Tarot, they call it New Fear, NYWFRE. In yogic terms, it would be the Amrit, or it could be the Kundalini energy itself. It goes by lots of different names, this life force energy. And the life force energy is an important part historically of the devil. And as I was preparing to teach earlier this week, I just was reminded of how much is lost in some of the simplified translations. And I have not. Thank you for that, though. That's a wonderful resource I will make sure to look at. And in Flournoy's book, in the Devil card, this was complete confirmation of what this card represents. And I'm just going to read for you a little bit from the beginning of this book. Arcanum 15, Le Diable, is the representation of the energy of the body as it ascends, causing the expansion of consciousness effected through the opening of the first 6 of 7 chakras. The open of the 7th, the Fontanelle Center, is the subject of the following Arcanum 16, La Maison Dieu. Temperance induced a lull, was a tranquil sea, a calming down. As a concern, sex was not entirely absent but remained in the background. Le Diable now reawakens it. Arcanum 15, Le Diable, is one of that group of card images that conveys a straightforward meaning. And he goes on to compare the energy of the Hanged Man and the Devil, and revealing some really interesting correspondences that I had completely forgotten about. And again, this just kind of, it brings it home how important it is to know something about a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, right? To take a little bit of time to study some of the older decks. And I found it really, really interesting as well too, because this comes up in a couple of the other old decks where we are looking at what appears to be a spelling error. So for example, in the Temperance card, instead of saying Le Temperance, we have L'Emperance. And there are other changes on this deck. And what Flournoy writes is that these are intentional and these convey other meanings and deeper meanings. And it is... it's there. It's a game within a game. It's there for us to explore and to learn and to study. And this is the fun. This is the fun of tarot study. This is the fun of playing with older decks. And sometimes I really miss this. And so yeah, I think it would be really good for me to take a break from contemporary tarot and an abundance of Waite Smith inspired decks, and to dive into some of this. It would be, yeah. Okay, I want to respond to some of your comments and say hi to others that have come in. And thank you all. Please take a note of these references as well too. And I'm going to come back and write these books down. So thank you for that. By J.M. David. Thank you for that, Dee. I appreciate it. Warrior Girl, welcome to you. And Perry, hello. Hello, hello. I saw somebody else come in. If I missed you, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Mrs. McCormack, welcome. Lovely to have you here. Okay, so, and again, please remember, I'm just kind of cherry picking which decks I'm sharing with you today. So from 1070 to 1650, now we're going to go to 1835. And the reason I chose this deck is because I want to acknowledge the house of Il Meneghello. The house of Il Meneghello has produced some just amazing reproductions of the tarot, and the quality of the cardstock is just extraordinary. And I think that our tarot world would not be the same without printers such as Il Meneghello. And this is the Soprafino, right? This is Il Meneghello's reproduction of the Soprafino from about 1835. And honestly, this deck is one of, I love the colorations and the tea stains on the deck. It's absolutely stunning. There's beautiful, beautiful Ace of Coins. Warrior Girl has a question. I'm sure some of you are already busily answering it. Warrior Girl says, the suits are supposed to line up with playing cards, yet the tarot suits have 4 extra cards. When and where did they come from? Does anyone know? Yes, Warrior Girl. I'm sure somebody in the chat can add that information. The tarot, yeah. I'm going to say I can't answer that question right now. I would have to look that up. But yes, that information is readily available. That's what I can say. Hi, Anne. Welcome. And these are wonderful little cards, just beautiful paper to hold in your hands. Some years ago, I did a video on why I love Tarot de Marseille. This is the size of the cards. And honestly, one of the reasons I love working with these cards or reading with these cards is because I feel transported. I feel transported to another time and to another place. It takes me back to another way of delivering artwork. And I am actually quite sickened by the, look at this chariot. Look at it. It's just beautiful. The AI art thing that's just gonna get out of control. I don't know what we're gonna do, honestly. I really don't. When you have the opportunity to work with art like this, I don't know why you would ever pick up an AI deck. So yeah, so this is one of the restorations. This is the Il Meneghello restoration. And you know, if you ever want to give yourself a treat, you would never be disappointed in purchasing an Il Meneghello deck. They are absolutely remarkable. And unfortunately, I would say the master of the house, Maître, you know, the master of the house, he recently died. And one of the things on my bucket list, I won't be able to meet him, but is to go to that printing house and to arrange, you know, I would arrange for a time to to be in the energy of that space if I went to Italy. Yeah. So those were about 1835, and this reproduction is from 1992. And then Atea. So I don't have my Atea book here handy to share with you, but Atea is around, so Le Grand Jeu de l'Oracle des Dames. So the game of the Oracle of Women. Is that right? Grand Jeu. So the Atea Tarot is based on that. And if any of you have oh my goodness, the Deck of the Bastard, which was a deck that was created with the it was a blend of some of these cards as well as and that's why I bought this deck, actually, because I wanted to better understand the Deck of the Bastard and where all that is coming from. Yes, right? Yes, I totally agree with you, Dee. So the reason I purchased this was because I wanted to make sure that I was understanding what was going on in the Deck of the Bastard. Because in the Deck of the Bastard, which is an amalgamation of several different decks, the creator has also placed keywords above and below, but some of them are not actually the same that are on these cards. And I believe some of the cards from this deck were actually changed. So in the Deck of the Bastard, they're put in a different position, which is odd, I thought. Yeah. And again, these are surprising. So this is Lo Scarabeo, this edition that I have. I think this is also available from a few different publishers. The Atea Tarot. And what's really interesting about these cards is, so this is Arcanum number 6, and so we have the day, the night, then we have the title of the card on the side. So the reversed meaning is here, and then the upright meaning, the duat meaning, so that's upright. It's just really cool to work with other, and you know, it's like tarot for dummies. It tells you that this is the reversed position, so you know what you're looking at. Okay, so that is the Atea Tarot, otherwise known as the game of the Grand Ladies or something like that. So this is definitely another one that needs some attention by Sadhana. If we turn to, and I'm sorry I don't have my plaid back deck on the table. I wish I had my plaid. Anyway, I don't. This is the centennial version of the deck. The more that I read the more that I read, the more I am coming to love and understand this particular deck and where this deck is coming from and all the little different inspirations. And honestly, today, when I was reading in the book showed you, the Fleur Noire book, there was a few aha moments that I had that I wished I had. I don't know, did one of you say, I wish I had started with the Tarot de Marseille? I think that maybe that is a really good piece of advice. Or starting with, working with a tarot master that had some idea where tarot came from. And while the Ryder Smith tarot deck is one that is, you know, it stands on some pretty big shoulders, yet at the same time it was Waite chose not to include the paths that the majors follow on the Tree of Life. He chose not to include the Hebrew letters, and so sometimes when we look at these cards, we do see those esoteric associations, and we can, if you're familiar with them, bring in those correspondences. But because this deck is also a blend of Golden Dawn correspondences and inspirations from Sola Busca, among other things, this deck really is a unique offering. And I have been working with it for a long time and looking at it through quite a few different lenses. And I think it's, I think there's more behind it than meets the eye. Yeah. So the Waite Smith deck, I believe, was originally published in 1909. And this deck came to being very quickly. I believe Pamela Coleman Smith was, the artwork was a matter of a 6-month project. And for those of you that don't have the coffee table book, Pamela Coleman Smith by Stuart Kaplan, that is really an amazing book to have. And something a little less expensive that might really help if you're interested in doing more research into this deck is the Secrets of the Waite Smith Tarot by Katz and Goodwin, because there's lots of good little nuggets in that book as well too. Yeah. So then we go from 1909 to 1943. And of course, all of the decks I'm showing you are reproductions. 1943. And so this deck really brought, this is the, obviously the Thoth Tarot, the Aleister Crowley Thoth Tarot, illustrated by Lady Frida Harris. This deck really brought all of the esoterica out in the open. And neither, unfortunately, I believe the book was published first, and both Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley died before the deck was actually published, which is kind of interesting because they would have not, in their incarnate bodies anyway, ever heard any feedback on the deck. This deck is sorted because I'm teaching right now, but so yeah, so I have been doing now, how many weeks? Like 30 weeks working with this deck. Hello, Lydianne. And, ooh, okay, I'll read Donna's comment in just a second. And one of the things that I am enjoying in my study, so it's not I'm not doing a intensive study of this deck, but I'm using this deck as inspiration to weave together knowledge from various historical decks, looking at some of the geometry, looking at some of the symbols, deepening my awareness of the planetary correspondences. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying this project. Donna, let me see what you said. Another book highly recommended is Katz and Goodwin's Secret of the Waitsmith. Yes, that is. And it's interesting, you know, in that book, there is also quite a bit of speculation. And they are, it's like, in some of the pages, I feel like I'm reading, and I guess that's true of any historical reference, right? There's some postulations rather than facts. But Katz and Goodwin definitely have done some legwork in researching Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork. Pamela Coleman Smith was not honored enough for her work. All the credit went for Waite, yes. There is, you'll be interested to know, Hannah, that recently I came across a vlog, somebody on TarotTube, and the grave, they believe now, has been located, and it may very well, in the not too distant future, be marked. So, unfortunately, posthumously, she is being honored. But her soul knows, her spirit knows. Okay. Next, back to my list. Then we go to 1981. And this deck was originally published the first edition was self-published in Berkeley, California on Lammas Day, 1981. And the current edition, in a couple of different iterations, is still available from US Games. And this is the Mother Peace Tarot. And I'm sharing this with you, so the rest of the decks, of course, are much more contemporary. But I think they are decks that have really had some influence in the tarot world and given voice to different, given different voices. Given the tarot different voices. Yeah. Have any of you worked with this deck? I know this is a favorite of some people. And there is another, what is the other one? I was going to do a comparison of it, and I don't actually think I still have it. I could not connect with it, but this is a deck that I will, so my plan, and I have another, so I'm going to share with you, so Mother Peace 1981, and then I have a feeling I've missed one. It's okay, I'll get it for you. I'm going to get it out right now. So one of the things I would like to do, because I know this is a historic deck, and Rachel Pollack's, sorry, just dropped something. Rachel Pollack's deck is not. So this is Shining Tribe Tarot. Shining Tribe Tarot. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to do some sort of to spend a few weeks looking at these two decks together, because I think they have something to say to each other. So the deck on the right is the Shining Tribe Tarot by Rachel Pollack. And I've skipped ahead, I think, and I don't even know if I wrote this down. So this is around 2000. So this is much later that Rachel's deck was published, I believe. But I'm thinking it would be really cool to study these together. Yes, yes, and this is one of the ones that I missed. And the really cool thing about this deck that Donna is mentioning, one JJ Swiss, is that we have Juno and Jupiter instead of the Papess and the Pop, instead of the High Priestess and the High Priest. And that is really, really interesting. Yeah. So this is, for me, this is going to be a bit of a project. And this is why I said a couple of weeks ago that I don't think you're going to be getting rid of me for a very long time. No matter how old and wrinkly one becomes, there is still more and more and more to study. Okay. And I guess, you know, we really do need to mention Barbara Walker. Again, another deck that I could spend a lot of time with, and I'm really enjoying. I was able to find a book, a copy, a first edition. I was able to find a first edition of The Secrets of the Tarot by Barbara Walker. And this book is right up my alley. Oh my goodness. Sometimes I'll read. I haven't read this book cover to cover. I've read different sections of it, and it. What can I say? I love what she sees in the tarot and the way that some of the cards have been depicted. And perhaps what I might do is, oh, and also the goddesses that are associated with the court cards. But as I was saying today, and I was reading to you from the Fleur Noire book about the devil, I think that I could also bring in a little bit of Barbara Walker as well too, because the historical information that is included in this book is really good, and it would be excellent to cross-reference and deepen. So I'm just looking at the page for the Papess right now, and the detail that she goes into about the energy of this card is really quite extraordinary. And another thing I'm very curious about, so the Papess is not the energy of water in Tarot de Marseille. And this is another thing that I completely forgot about. I obviously didn't when I was studying Tarot de Marseille years ago. Never really got deep enough into it. And so I guess I'm readier to absorb this information now. And if I can find it quickly, I will share it with you. But I believe that the priestess is Earth. I will find this because this is fascinating. And it's also going to take me down a rabbit hole of rabbit holes. La Papesse personifies the artisan and the farmer. Her element is earth. She teaches that everything is alive. She invites the child to perceive the world and to understand it through the body, the flesh. The open book she holds on her knees is the great book of the knowledge of vitality and of nature, the great book of the world memory. Notice how inordinately long the index finger of her left hand is. This is because she has many pages to turn in, because she does it with her heart. Her right hand, the hand which corresponds to action, is hidden from view. Her teaching has nothing to do with the realms of possessing or acting, but of being. She wears a triple tiara, so she is in correspondence with, obviously, the Papesse and the Pope and the Popess. And the Pope is not the element of earth, because that's the Papesse. The Pope is the element of air. And then we have the Empress and the Emperor, who pick up the other two elements. And so, yeah, this is kind of amazing. I have the Barbara Walker Tarot in a tin, and if I ever found at a reasonable price a larger copy of this, this is something I would pick up. Oh, we've got Kali right off the bat. Yes, we have Kali. Okay. And because she uses some of the traditional names for the cards, this is another reason why I think it would be fun to pull in some Barbara Walker cards into the study. And I mean, look at the Ace of Cups. Think of the places. Again, yes, and I like what you said, Hannah. Tarot is an extended world of rabbit holes within rabbit holes. And I think it is so fun. It would be so fun to dive into, yeah. I guess what I'm saying here, folks, is I think I'm done with, for a while anyway. I want to start going down more rabbit holes with all of you. Yeah. I think we're all ready for it. Six of Cups. And when I look at decks like this, it makes me, I mean, I don't have it anymore, but I think of a deck like Crystal Visions Tarot. And I don't want to name decks because, and Donna and I were chatting online in a comment, Donna Rion, and I'm not in a place where I have any reason to slash, bash, knock certain deck creators. There's no point. I'm just going to go on and study and use other decks. And so perhaps the absence of certain decks just says that that's not where I am right now. Yeah. And perhaps one of the reasons I hung out in that world so long is because, that's where most of the population is. Okay. And perhaps and then I will just do, one feature a week on current and contemporary stuff. I think that would be a good idea. Okay, so 1986. I thought it was worthwhile mentioning William Blake Tarot. That's not a deck I have, or I've thought about getting it, but there's just so many decks that I have that I haven't worked with. So William Blake is one that I wanted to mention, like honorable mention. I think another, I think Oswald Wirth is definitely a deck creator that is a worthy mention as well too. I have the Crystal Tarot, and I picked up this deck because I wanted to go down the rabbit hole of the of Utz Picard and the Euclidean geometry and all of that. So this is also another place that perhaps we will end up one day. And this is another deck that is just full of great insight. And it's funny, when I was choosing my topic for today, I'm thinking, wow, how am I going to do this? Because I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, and there's so much greatness out there. 2002, skipping forward to 2002, the German edition of the Margaret Peterson Tarot was published in 2002. And in 2 years later, the English edition was published. And we have just had last year, a 25th anniversary edition come out. So this is definitely an enduring deck that has intrigued tarologists for many, many years. And the poetry in this deck is really beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed, and thank all of you for the comments and all that you added to the deep dive that I did with this deck. One of my favorite features of this deck is indeed the court cards and the beautiful descriptions that Margaret offers for the court cards. I think her little white book should have won an award for the very best, smallest little white book. It is chock full of wisdom. Yeah. And I think I will read you a poem. And perhaps a little something from one of the court cards as well too. All right, let's read the poem for the sun. Brightly singing as sound grown white, you appear at the boundary of day and night, cosmic yellow-skinned goddess, far away. With your rays you touch the plexus, named after you, pulsating organism, illuminating the dark and light parts of the world. None more attractive than the other. You see what happens far away and deep inside. You shape the visible world. You make whole what is separate. Everything you touch is transformed. And I find it so interesting. So she refers to the sun as goddess, right? So she switches up that energy. If I can find the Mother of Flames. The Mother of Flames. Let's put the World card on the table for World Tarot Day. Oh, there's the Father of Cups. That is a gorgeous card. It's probably, oh, there it is. Okay. It's a good thing I have extra copies of this deck, because I have marked up my little book so much. I really need to, I don't know, somehow start fresh Mother of Flames. I have my note beside this one is Durga. And then later on, Kali. I am the flame born out of flame. The fire has consumed all slag, and my heart is pure as gold. Rider of tigers am I. I tear apart the patterns that restrict the spontaneous expression of my being. Lust dwells in my nerves and muscles. Wave-like rhythms carry me away, and I am the crimson red, mother of all colors. Barefoot, pounding sparks from the soil, I burn and transmute the food in my intestines. This is one of the things about this deck that I love, is she brings in all this yogic psychology, and oh my goodness, just the references are so abundant, and they go in many different directions through different mythologies. I change hate into love, envy and greed into compassion. I plant fresh greens. I plant fresh green plants into black lava soil. In the flaming river of eternal creation, I appear at highways and street crossings with a bowl full of blood and a necklace made of skulls. Right? Who is that? I am a comedienne. I love drama. I change my masks and my costumes, but I am always unveiled. The sun pours its golden light upon me and makes my body shine. Every day I renegotiate with the goddess of taboo. Every day I renegotiate with the goddess of taboo. Those who nourish me, I grant lust and ecstasy. From the man of flames, I take what I need to be fulfilled. And so part of the amazing goodness of this deck are the connecting correspondences. She does an amazing job of weaving the story of the court cards. And to me, honestly, that's one of the things that is missing in so many tarot decks, is that the story, the mythology of each family of courts it's so separated, and I just love the way she describes all of this. All right, so the German 2002, English 2004. 2012, we had a couple of very groundbreaking decks that were released. And there was a self-published version of the Marielle before Schiffer published it. And I actually haven't seen it. And this is a trimmed copy of the first edition of the Marielle. And if you follow me, you know this is a deck that I continue to look at. That. Oh my goodness, look at those colors on the table. That's beautiful. I continue to find inspiration from this deck. And I continue to learn and see new things in the paintings. And find new connections. Marie White herself in an interview said that when she created this deck, she was pregnant with twins. And so this is 2012, some time ago, right? And she now sees different things in these cards. And you know, it's like the deck grows, the deck evolves, the energy of the deck lives. And you know, this is what an enduring deck is. It's not one that we put away and we forget about. And as I was pulling out decks for today, I mean, this is not one I had to pull out, it's always right here. I grabbed a few, like I was going, oh yeah, this one, this one, this one. Why am I keeping these? They have no lust to them. They're just, yeah. Okay, a couple more. So also in 2012, Kim Kranz came on the scene. 2012, Miss Kranz appeared, fellow yogi, and this deck was self-published in 2012. And this is a 2012 first edition that was gifted to me. And I did not purchase this deck when it came out by Harper One. I just thought it was kind of a funny deck, and it took, I forget what it was that hooked me into this deck, but I enjoy working with it. It's not one that's out right now, but I have multiple copies of it, and I've spent some time coloring some of the cards and reflecting on it. And I certainly began to understand more about this soul known as Kim Kranz in reading her journal. I did a video on it. I think that's definitely worthwhile watching. The bones and flowers. Yeah. Yes, Donna. Yes. Shadowscapes is an amazing deck. And yeah, I did not pull that out today, but thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Blossoms and Bones. So if you want to better understand this deck, if it's one that you don't get, you know, some people just don't get this deck, watch my video on Blossoms and Bones. I also did I think a video called 10 Ways to Connect with the Wildwood Tarot. So if you're looking for resources, you can find them on my channel. Okay. There is a printing team. There's a publishing team in the US called USI. I'm sure you've all heard of USI. And I'm not sure what their first deck was. The creators are Peter Dunham and Linnea Gitz. And it wasn't until I now have one of their Tarot de Marseille decks, and I have Pagan Otherworlds, and I have the periodic table deck, which is really interesting. I really appreciate the decks that are published. I have the Super Oracle as well too. I really appreciate the decks. Bye Saskia, good night. I really appreciate the diligence, all that goes into the making of these decks. And I've read a couple of different blogs where Linnea, I believe, was interviewed, and she described the process of this artwork. And I was actually quite shocked at how much I connected with these cards. And it wasn't the same kind of experience as working with a Tarot de Marseille, but I really felt mysteriously connected to these cards, and the card stock quality, the shuffleability, it's really beautiful, really beautiful. And they do print guidebooks. I put one on the table, but it's buried here. Here it is. They do print guidebooks for each of their tarot decks, and I have purchased a couple of them, but honestly, I was so glad I had the one for the oracle that is based on the periodic table. That one. I'm really glad I had the guidebook for that one. That was a really interesting deep dive that I did. And they're lovely to have. They're lovely quality books. And let's read one, because it's kind of interesting. I'm reading the Star right now, but I don't know if I can find that card. Let's go to the King of Cups. Let's go to the very misunderstood King of Cups and see what they have to say about him. Crowned with coral, the sea's bones of the past that build future homes. The King of Cups is a Neptune-like figure. His throne is surrounded by waters. All rivers of the earth meet in his realm and flow out to the sea beyond. The King of Cups luxuriates in his sacred visionary dreams. In his mind's eye, he journeys across oceans of water, space, and time. He goes there with eyes gently shut, listening, trusting. The sound of breath moving in and out, like the sound of the sea, lulling, comforting, transporting, finding treasure in his mind's depth, and bringing it back across seemingly impossible, endless seas in just one breath. But treasures stirred up from the deep that find their way to our shores can bring good as well as difficult things our way. The King of Cups lesson is one of understanding, trusting in the ephemeral nature of things so we can seize the moment, and also, more importantly, knowing how to release that moment. Nature shows this to us every day, accepting your gifts and allowing yourself to give them away, knowing they will come back again in another shape, multiplied. Learning to love begins with learning to let go. Patiently learning to bear the heaviness allows you to float. That is a really good line. Patiently learning to bear the heaviness allows you to float. Thank you, Hannah. Yes, that is the Oracle deck by the same creators that is based on the periodic table, and it is quite extraordinary. I have done lots and lots of reflections with several Oracle decks in my Facebook group, and that deck is one of them. Okay. I want to acknowledge a contemporary tarot expert, someone who quite possibly has done more research into the tarot than anyone else in the last, I'll say 10 years. And that's Annabelle Wen. It's really quite impressive. I don't know how in the world this woman has an active law practice. I really, really don't. I purchased the third variation of the Spirit Keeper's Tarot as a historical document. And in her own words, she wrote, "I created the Spirit Keeper's Tarot with a singular mission in mind, to design the most powerful occult technology possible." And so, where and when? You know, this deck I might actually do just one card at a time, do a personal, or maybe like one a week, something like that. And Benabel she is so generous with her resources. The number of resources that she has free out there and the World Wide Web is really extraordinary. And so I think that, you know, a video like this today, I can't not mention Benabel Wen. She is really singularly, she is singular. Yeah. That's it. That's what I pulled for you today. I think this journey with the tarot is amazing, and we can learn so much about ourselves. I want to close with something really funny. You're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh if I can find it. And it's in the words of Jean-Claude Fournoy about reading the tarot. So I just need to go to his little section called What the Tarot is Not, or How Not to Work with the Tarot, something like that, because it's quite funny. How not to use the Marseille Tarot. Be careful to pace yourself. In the beginning, you will be tempted to do reading after reading. But the reality is that one's psychic landscape is not something that evolves quickly. Reading again for a querent after a lapse of only 6 months since a previous reading is too soon, and would risk making nonsense of your interpretation. A beginner might rationalize, well, this really isn't the same question. This is about something new, and last time Dick asked me if Jane would become his girlfriend. This time he asked me if he'll find a job. In your previous reading, though, you probably dealt cursorily with these issues: love and money, and 2 others, travel and health. You would have covered the underlying questions and then gone on to more serious matters, avoiding exposing yourself to these mundane inquiries. So very tiresome in the long run. You will only self-destruct as a cartomancer if you try to build up a repeat clientele by offering too frequent consultations. So be stingy with your readings. Thank you. Have a lovely weekend. Namaste.